right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar, Data and Analytics at T2, Increasing Data Literacy. Just a quick reminder before we get started, if you have questions, please type them into the Q&A chat feature. You can ask them at any time during the presentation, and we will address the questions at the end. At this time, I'd like to introduce you to our presenter for today's webinar, James Piscasio. James is a product manager here at T2. His focus is to develop and lead the strategy and execution of T2's business intelligence, analytics, and report product offerings, as well as drive direction on creating a culture of data-driven decision-making. James has spent his career focused on helping people maximize the value of their technology investments, be it with T2 system solutions or internal applications. The opportunity to continue that passion in this role motivates him to learn, plan, and execute for the benefit of our current and growing T2 community. Welcome, James.
Hey, thanks, Catherine. I really appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for taking some time to not so much chat with me, but kind of listen and participate in this webinar around increasing data literacy with all the different points of data that's coming into an organization. It's very important in understanding how to leverage that, right, to improve efficiencies or improve productivity, to decide when and how to make investments, along with a whole host of things. So really thankful that you spent some time with us today. We're going to go through kind of two areas as we talk about data literacy. One from a more macro level, focusing in on establishing a culture of data literacy, starting with the definition of what data literacy is. What are some of the challenges to cultivating that as an organization that you might come up against? And then, digging a little bit deeper into context. When we talk about accurate data-driven decisions, context I have found is a huge factor in being able to clearly articulate what your data is saying to those that are invested in it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Then we're going to look at a more micro level, so establishing data literacy at T2. We have a number of applications that are pouring in data for us from hosted environments and then all of our internal applications that we have. So how are we, using these same kind of practices here at T2? How do we leverage our methodologies to provide solutions for our customers, both current and potential? And then what are some practical next steps? Given all the things that we're learning and we want to do and we're experiencing, what do we do with that? How do we take that back to people that can use it and leverage it just as we have? So that's kind of where we're going today. Like I said, I'm really excited to chat with you guys about this. So let's start with kind of the macro, the establishing a culture of data literacy. Now, I'm going to read this to all of us. This quote from Casey says, data literacy is the ability to read, write, and communicate data in context, including an understanding of data sources and constructs, analytical methods, and technique applies, and the ability to describe the use case, application, and resulting value. So that phrase there, data literacy, is the ability to read, write, and communicate data in context, is really what we're trying to get after when we talk about cultivating a culture of data literacy. Like, how do we get all of our folks, our stakeholders, our users to really hone that ability to read, write, and communicate data? And not only just do that, but to do that within context of our organization. Right? We talk about, from a parking perspective, just counting the total permits on any given day. Like, that total permit count means something different depending on your organization. If you have a visitor campus and your total permits number in the tens of thousands, that might be really normal and good for you. If you're not a visitor campus, you're a more stable, regular campus with resident students and faculty, and you have 10,000 visiting cars, that might mean something totally different because that's not your context, right? So how do we help our folks understand what the context is for organizations and understand how to read, write, and communicate data given that context? And what we find as we start to unpack that a little bit is that there's some real challenges to data literacy, right? Not knowing where to start, right? Not knowing what are the right questions to ask, not knowing what right statistical measures or calculations you should use to find answers that are going to provide the type of insights that you need to really make data-driven decisions. You may not know how to present that data to your stakeholders. Right? Is it more beneficial to use red and green in a column chart, or should you use a multicolored tree map to communicate what your data is telling you? Right? There may not be a clear action plan for the data insights that you get. We have a number of customers who work inside of universities, and there are board of regents, there are trustees, there are key figures inside of those organizations that prevent just drastic change, even though the data is saying, hey, we should make drastic changes, right? So being unable to institute those changes, not knowing how to go out and get that data. A lot of data is behind APIs or in databases that you may not have direct connections to. So what does it look like to put together a scalable and a functional model for acquiring that data, storing that data, and getting whole and complete pictures of that data so that you can make the decisions that you need to as an organization? And then lastly, I think this is just a reality for a lot of organizations where we may not have usable data, right? The time that it takes to clean data and to do all of the investigation work to get it to a state to be able to ask those questions is a real challenge for a lot of us, right? That's not just us projecting that out to our community, that's us at T2, right? We have all these different data points. How do we use that? What's the most effective and efficient way to use that? And all of these are real, honest challenges. We have to ask ourselves, right? Knowing this, what can be done with these challenges? There are some things within our direct control that we can do, but then there are a lot of things that we can't, right? So an effort to talk a little bit about what we can do, if we're addressing those data literacy challenges, some of where I like to start is just embracing fundamentals. So this goes back to, hey, I don't know where to start. Right, I don't know what measures to pull. I don't know how to even begin to ask the questions of my data. I would say we would start with embracing fundamentals. There's a podcast that one of our senior staff was a part of, and he made a point to talk about embracing the fundamentals in an operation, right? There are just some key things, key metrics that if you're running an operation, you need to know, right? What's my revenue for last month? How many permits did we sell? How efficient is my parking staff actually on a day-to-day basis? Right, let me use those as starting points, and then let me jump off of that as we dig deeper into the data points that we're given. Right, from there we can start to investigate and ask good questions. Right, so everybody, I believe, has parts in their job or their departments or even their organizations where you can find efficiencies. And I think some of the challenges there is that if we find those efficiencies, that immediately means that we're going to start to lose people. And that's not necessarily true, right? If we can find efficiencies in somebody's day-to-day operation where you're not pulling together a massive workbook that's being fed by 10 other smaller workbooks, there are smarter and better things that we can have that person doing, or there are different investments that we can make in an employee's performance, right, to maximize what they do on a day-to-day basis, make them happier as a stakeholder within the organization, or give them paths to do other things within the organization that provide tremendous value, right? So what does it look like for us to investigate and really ask good questions of our organizations, of our people, and start to make those changes and tweaks in that way, right? And then lastly, to understand what's important to you and your organization. So this kind of gives us a little jumping off point if we're talking about context. But if we start with understanding, like really getting a knowledgeable foundation of what's important to us as key performance metrics, things that we can hold our staff accountable to, we can hold our applications and our vendors accountable to, that becomes monumentally important to increasing data literacy, to understand how to read, write, and communicate data within context. All starts with understanding what's important to our organization because it gives us a focus point, right? We reported that we have some 455,000 gigabytes of data coming through our hosted environment, which is a tremendous amount of data. Drilling down just a little bit, I've had the opportunity in my role as a consultant and a business analyst for a number of years here to dig through financial data for some of our customers. And we'll look at financial data for a month. And good goodness, there's a lot in there. There's a lot to unpack and understand. And if I tried to take an approach of eating 455,000 gigabytes of data in the same way that we would take an approach of looking at financial transactions, those things are just off, right? So what methodologies are we using? What kind of approach are we using to really understand what's important to the organization and then apply that within context and addressing those problems, either large or small? So we have to start there to get to our context for our organizations so that we can really get after increasing our data literacy. So it kind of goes back to this question I asked at the top. Why is understanding organizational context so important, right? And very, very simply, context allows for accurate analysis, okay? Context within your organization, understanding how you guys operate, how your other departments operate and feed into you by way of an impact from performance, that allows for accurate analysis, okay? Let me take you a scenario. If you're presented with this chart by a vendor that's comparing revenue collected within a bank settlement and then receipts applied or collected in your parking operation, you might see that everything is pretty normal, right? In September, what we're showing by way of our bank settlement data, that's the light blue. It's a little higher than what we've collected in our application. We can look, if you squint really hard and look sideways, in August, we're showing a little bit more inside of our application than what we're showing inside of our bank. What you can see is like some months are higher, right, inside of your application. Some months are higher inside of the bank, right? So if we dig down a little bit deeper into that, we start to see by day those gaps are a little bit bigger. And you start to notice that and you'll say, why is this happening? Is this normal? What does this mean for our organization? And really those answers can be found within the context of the organization that you're in, okay? And what that means is that the differences that you see within this data could be caused by fees or charges that are applied in your bank settlement data that never make it to your application. There might be reconciliation timing or settlement times that are different from your application than what you're seeing in the bank. So some of those amounts would slip into the next day or the next month and showing some of those higher totals. And there might be, just really honest, there might be challenges with failed transactions within your data, right? You might have an organization that's using a batch process for your financial transactions. So you collect all of this card data and you send it up once a month, or not once a month, but once a day at the end of the day. And, there may be cards in there that had insufficient funds or get bounced back or were not valid, right? So even though your application shows that you collected a payment, your bank isn't, seeing those funds, right? So just because you have these gaps in your data, there might be all of these other things that are going on in it. And it's not that the data's bad or the data's wrong or the way that you've acquired that data. There's another type of context that's impacting that, right? So if we don't understand that, if we don't have a foundation for some of those scenarios, some of those what ifs, then we would always look at these charts as wrong, right? And we would extrapolate that out over the whole host of our organizations, and we would see that as wrong, right? And then we go back to, you know, I'm just going to trust my gut. I think that we have the money that we should have without really digging into some of these methods. So all that to say, it's vital to understand, you know, your organizational context to reap the real benefits of investing in data and analytics. And that's a direct quote, right? Like, it really is. Without that, without having a framework for working in that, it makes it really difficult to get the kind of insights that you might want as an organization, and to see everything as, you know, really skeptical. When you're starting to look at those gaps in data, or this is wrong. And we're going to talk a little bit later about how, you know, how platforms impact that and how we in our history have impacted that, and what we're doing in the future to that end. But when we talk about data literacy and we talk about getting after that internally here at T2 or externally, it all comes back to this, where it's super vital for us to understand organizational context, okay? And when we can do that, we start to reap those benefits. And some of those we've outlined here, right? We can improve our organizational decision making. So we're not just leveraging that gut feeling around making decisions, right? We have numbers that we understand. We have data points that we can track. We're getting the right information. We're explaining that information to key folks. And we see how that's improving the decisions that we make. Before going on, pause even right there with decision making. I think this is worth saying, is that gut feeling can't be fully removed from your decisions. It's interesting. I watch a lot of football, a lot of basketball, and some of these older coaches, the older generations who didn't have analytics and didn't have that as a piece of making decisions on the court. Hey, how do we limit LeBron from scoring 40, or how do we keep Patrick Mahomes for throwing for 400 yards? Well, okay, if we implement this defense or we try to do this, then that won't happen, right? Yeah, all the analytics in the world can give you this playbook to follow, but Patrick Mahomes is still going to, you know, put up 400 yards, and LeBron James is still going to score 40, right? So there are things that you'll have to do, even with all of this information, that you may have to rely on your gut, right? The whole point of using analytics and data and not totally undercutting the legs there is, how do we reduce every decision that we make is just a gut feeling? How do we give basis for, we're going to implement this type of defense, and then we have to really leverage our guys and understand our team, so that, you know, we can contain these great players from putting up the kind of numbers that they're accustomed to putting up, right? So how do we balance those two things? And it's really important that we mention that, because it can't just swing all the way to every decision is going to be made from a number, because like we said on top, there might not be a clear path for action to make that happen. You may not be able to change your rate structure to bring in 15% more revenue, even though you have the space to do it, or even though you have the application that can handle that. And then for those that can, that's great. Let's use numbers to support that. So a little bit of a caveat there, but I feel like that's super important to say. We can improve our efficiency and our effectiveness, right? When we're making decisions based on data, right, there are clear ways that we're using our staff, we're using our resources more efficiently and more effectively. There are situations that I've been able to be a part of in bringing some of those efficiencies to an organization based on data points. Hey, we're spending way too much time processing these applications by hand. Let's put them in an automated process. And when we do that, let's track how much time we've saved. There are some reconciliation processes that we have here internally at T2 that would take somebody 17 hours to do in a given week, right? We put in an automated process that drops that down to an hour a week, and now we're just reviewing and chasing those transactions that you know, don't match up or aren't in the system, right? So instead of compiling all that data, spending 17 hours to compile all that data and try to understand, do lookups, reuse all of these workbooks. Man, let's put an automated process in here and let's track that with some really strong data points. Then we get data-driven feedback from our data systems, so we can understand better the impact of those operational decisions. When we put in that automated system to reduce 17 hours down to 1, let's track that, right? Let's put that somewhere. Let's measure that, and let's see, are we really seeing an efficient increase, a performance increase by way of having that process in place. We're able to leverage a ton of technology, right? So I always make this joke that the world runs on Microsoft Excel, and I think the business world does kind of still run on Microsoft Excel. But there are a lot of different tools that can be used and leveraged to improve our data literacy in the space of data and analytics. Right, there's Power BI, there's Tableau, there's Jaspersoft. There are improvements. If you really wanted to dig into Microsoft Excel and leverage that as an organization, you could do that, right? There's more than just VLOOKUPs and HLOOKUPs and sums and averages, right? Like you could, if you really wanted to, run your whole business out of Excel. But is that the right tool to do that, right? There are a ton of trainings and visualizations and methodologies that are available to invest in so that you can reap the benefits of really understanding your data. And lastly, data equals money, right? If we have the power to make changes to our transient price structure or our citation structure, then if we have data to back that up, then we can show a real return on investment there of making a change, seeing an increase of revenue, like trying to find where the opportunity cost points are, those break-even points are, and increasing X amount or percentage, and then seeing a return without sacrificing losing staff, having to invest in more equipment, or seeing a drop in customer satisfaction, right? So really understanding that data and those points and being able to apply context to that is a huge benefit, right? As we talk about even bottom line benefits, which a lot of organizations will leverage their parking and transportation departments to bring revenue to other parts of the organization, right? So it's important that we're wielding those resources the right way. So now let's jump down a little bit into the micro. So we're going to talk a little bit about T2 here and understanding what we're doing as a vendor, right, for a lot of you guys as it pertains to increasing data literacy for us, and then the product T2 Analytics NXT. I'm going to touch briefly on, which is our next generation business intelligence product, which will also help bring a level of context to the data that you have within your application. Now, we are a data-driven organization, let's say that, but there are ways that we can be more efficient in our methods for acquiring, understanding, and presenting that data internally, externally, the ways that we can help our customers from a method kind of process to think through. There are a lot of different things that we can be better about in that arena. Now I want to start here, the company mission and just company brief. I think we have a mix of an audience with some prospective customers and then also some current. So bear with me here for a second. But our company mission is to be the leader in delivering innovative and reliable technology solutions for parking and transportation that helps our customers succeed. Okay? That's why we get up every day. We want to lead in that way. We want to deliver innovative and reliable technology, and we want to help ultimately our customers succeed. And when we look at our whole platform that we offer, everything from citation management and I think about consulting services and our base applications like Flex, Flexport, and Iris, it's all built around being able to unify a parking operation. We have this really, really helpful map that we've shown and we use in speaking about this idea is that you have within a campus or a city all of these different pieces a part of your operation, right? And what I said at the very beginning is that all of that's bringing data into an application. So for us as a vendor, how do we best leverage and position ourselves to help you maximize the value of your investment with your system, right? How do we help in all of these different spheres, or if you're only using one segment of this, we want to be able to lead and deliver technology that's going to help you in that, right? So we transition to specifically talking about data literacy at T2. Like I said, we are data-driven decisions. All of our departments, they're bringing in data, be it regression testing, hardware and manufacturing. We talk about service utilization for our consultants and business analysts, in a number of different ways. When I stepped into this role as a product manager for data and analytics, one of the things that was really, really important to me was setting this vision, which is to cultivate an internal and external culture of data-driven decisions, right? And this is, again, kind of continuing what's already been done the 20 some odd years that T2 has been around, right? How do we continue to cultivate this culture of data-driven decisions? And that becomes infused in everything that we do. So when we talk about T2 Analytics NXT, when we talk about reporting, when we talk about consulting, all of those things kind of find their being in this cultivating a culture of data-driven decisions, right? And we repeat that vision in everything. I had the opportunity to talk down at a local university. We're talking to some of the senior students around data analytics and this topic of increasing data literacy, and talking through the methods that we use to set this vision. And really, I really honed in on this, is that we repeat this vision in everything. I had the opportunity to lead our consulting group for a little bit, for a couple of years. And when we started, man, we set this vision that we wanted to help our customers maximize the value of their T2 solutions. You see all those bubbles on that map, right? It's really easy to invest in those different segments and applications and just let those processes kind of sit and get stale. So what does it look like for us to maximize the value of our customers' investments in those things? Right, so that was the vision, and that's what we came back to over and over again. And it's the same thing with data literacy, and that's the same thing that you'll have to do for your organization if you're not doing that now, right? We set a vision of why we're using data and why we're going to invest in that, and then we're going to repeat that vision in everything that we do. After that, we started to investigate pain points, right? So even though we're collecting data and we have that available to us, what are the real issues that people are facing, right? What are the issues that are here at T2, and what are the issues that are present for our customers? And how do those overlap, right? Is it the acquisition of data? Is it the storage of data? Is it not knowing how to model that data together to really get good insights and answer the questions? When I talk about modeling data together, you take Salesforce, for example. Salesforce has a number of tables that are available, right? You got customers and accounts and opportunities and, maybe cases. What does it look like to model your account tables with your opportunity tables to understand where you're selling the most, right? Or where you need to target to sell more, or what types of things are being sold, right? So if that's a pain point to understand, how do we put in processes, increase training, find a platform to help us do that? And then we take it into investigating those stories, right? So investigating what people want to see and understand how we can not only help for today, but for the future. And with that, we need to find a tool to help deliver those insights, right? So as we look at that stepped process, yep, we understand what our pain points are. Yep, we understand where we want to go and all the things that we want to do better. All right, let's find a tool that can help us. Like I said a couple of minutes ago, you could use Excel for everything. You really could. In the same way, it's like, hey, I'm going to cut every piece of meat with a plastic fork or a plastic knife, right? You might be able to cut that meat, but is that the most efficient way to do that thing, right? But with, I love to cook. With using sharper knives, there comes a greater risk at cutting yourself, right? And I think that's kind of an apt way to look at investments in data, right? The more that we invest in this tool or try to find a more sophisticated tool, if we don't really learn how to use this the best way, we might end up, not utilizing it to its full potential. We might be utilizing it in a way that we shouldn't. This is coming from a background of people using knives to screw in bolts, things like that, right? Like we don't want to do that. So how do we assess a tool that's going to deliver the appropriate insights for our context, for our organization, right? And then we create a plan and we execute against that plan. Right, so we take all those pain points, we take those user stories, we take those insights that are going to be available to us from that tool, and we go put that thing in. So we look at this, and I've talked to our team about this. We take this approach as we look at our T2 Analytics NXT platform, which we'll talk about here really briefly. T2 Analytics NXT is the next iteration of T2's business intelligence and analytics platform. We've had a couple of platforms in the past built on Tableau and then built on Thiessens. As we look at a holistic shift in our business intelligence and analytics strategy and our reporting strategy, we're going to be using the Microsoft stack to achieve that. I'm really excited about the Microsoft stack. Like I said, I'm going to say this a lot. You can run the world on Excel, right? And a lot of us do. So Power BI being born out of Excel and Power Query, Microsoft being a world-class industry leader in this space, really, really helpful. A lot of great things that we're able to do and achieve by using their technologies, right? And there are a lot of our customers that are using these technologies as well. So the ramp-up time, the approach to these different methods can be shared, and we can help better align what we're doing with what our customers are doing because so many of our customers are in this space already, right? One of the biggest challenges for us to overcome, and we've been able to do this over the last month as we've gotten this product ready, is the acquisition and storage and modeling of data, okay? So when we think back to some of our challenges in the past, and understanding context, and come back to that, understanding context, we have to be able to be nimble enough and flexible enough to meet the needs of our customers today and then our customers in the future. And we do that by having a really scalable method for acquiring that data from whatever that source is, bringing that to a store, modeling that together, and then presenting that in these platforms. And at another time, we'll go really deep into the technical details around that. I'm really excited to share that with you. But this platform, this architecture, this focus has helped us continue to cultivate a culture of data-driven decisions, right? Being able to reliably acquire data and to present data, that helps cultivate that culture, right? We've been able to use that and those methods internally as we think about how do we go after data, how do we ask questions, really good questions, and how do we scale that out. And it also falls in line with the overall vision of this company in being the leader in delivering reliable and innovative technology, right? So how do we use this technology that we've been given to help maximize the value internally and then also externally to align with that for our customers in the parking industry. So as we continue on that road, right, we're able to pull together different reports, different visualizations that find their footing in that vision of key metrics, cultivating a culture for our customers and our stakeholders, both internally and externally. You're going to hear that in everything that I say. And I want to show this and spend just 2 seconds talking about context, because again, context is everything. You heard me say that, and I'm going to continue to say that. And one of the greatest benefits of T2's applications, their solutions, is the way that you can be super flexible with them, right? So from large to small, universities, to hospitals, to airports, and been able to have some involvement in all of that, we can use Flex to run those operations, right? And run those operations pretty efficiently. But every organization is different, and every organization has a different level of context. So talking to one of our customers, and And she had mentioned that, yeah, you can show me a number of total citations for the last month, but if you can't bring in custom fields or if you can't bring in this other table, then that's no good to me, right? I'm missing a whole level of context. And in the past, it was really, really difficult for us to go grab that data for that one customer and present that to them. But with that architecture, we've streamlined that process. The other thing, and I said this at Connect for those of you who were there, for those of you who weren't, I'll say this now, our best efforts at creating these curated reports or visualizations or whatever they are, given the context that we find our application, because everybody is different, will get you 60, 70% of the way there by way of insights. The reason why that is because, like I said, everybody's a little bit different. So what is that foundational, kind of layer that we can put in, and then how do we build on that to give you the insights that you need? Now, some of our customers are just using base flex, right? So a permit is a permit is a permit, and a citation is a citation. Appeals are coming through, wait lists are coming through. So you're going to find a lot of value out of what we've curated and pulled together. But for some of need an additional level of context. And like I said, we can build on that and build around that. We're really happy to be able to do that and excited to be able to do that. Okay. The other thing that I wanted to throw out, I've shared this before, a lot of people have asked about this. With that platform that we're using, there are a lot of different certifications and trainings and resources that are available, all with building out visualizations and reports as it pertains to the platform, how to increase effective chart making, how do we get after giving some real good visualizations and communicating that through. These are tools and things that we've taken our people through, and we're going to continue to take our people through to get certifications so that we can maximize the value that we provide to you as a customer. We'll be using these tools and techniques and classes internally, but then also we want to, like I said, for organizations that are moving at a breakneck pace, right, that don't have the room to slow down, to find time to do certification courses, we want to be able to communicate that our people have gone through this, right? And we want to bring our own level of context, one from leveraging a platform, and then also with leveraging the knowledge that we have of the parking industry so that when we model data together or we're looking at a specific measure, that there's some trust there. There's trust in how we bring those numbers together. There's trust in why we're using those different values, and we can present that to you. Okay. So all of this is built on cultivating an internal and external culture of data-driven decisions, right? Utilizing fundamental key performance indicators and modern-day analytic strategies, right? We set a vision, we repeat that vision in everything, right? And that's what we're trying to get after, that cultivation, culture, fundamental, and strategy. That's what we're trying to get after. So as we talked today, or rather I talked and you listened, we looked at increasing data literacy from really 2 points, right? It's the macro, establishing a culture of data literacy, something that you can take back and consider and really kind of wrestle with as it pertains to your organization, right? When you talk about what data literacy is, it's just the ability to read, write, and communicate data in context, right? In the context of your organization, the context of your current situation where you find yourself. To understand and recognize that there are some real challenges to cultivating a culture of data literacy, not being able to institute changes, not knowing what are the right measures to find answers, not knowing how to present those findings, right? But then also understanding that you can just embrace the fundamentals, right? To start to investigate what people's pain points are currently, and start to understand your own organizational context to get over those challenges, or to allow us to work with you to uncover some really cool insights so that we can start to build out some real good pipelines into data. We talked about why context is so important. It's because everybody is different, right? Everybody's unique. Yes, we want to be able to normalize data, and we want to be able to apply standards so that we can all speak the same language, because there's power in that, right? There's power in us being able to share in that way. But some of the reality is that, you know, a university and a hospital and an airport have, you know, drastically different needs, right? But there is carryover. There are techniques that can be utilized between the three so that data literacy can be increased. Right? We're building and continuing to build a culture of data-driven decisions here at T2. We do that with the methodologies that we're employing to build T2 Analytics NXT, to leverage our investment in this platform and these tools as we look at all the different ways that we can enhance our collections and enhance finance, our utilization, the way that our staff gets after really helping our customers and our clients. We're continuing to essentially eat what we're also producing, so that we can really maximize the value of us producing it, right? We're going to see tremendous benefits from the T2 Analytics NXT platform in the ways that we can provide a baseline for so many of our customers so that they know what questions they can begin to ask, and then they can start to find those insights. And then we can add that context that's so important to their organization, right? Some people might want to look at appeals, some people might want to look at wait lists, some people might want to look at validations, right? So how are we going to be nimble enough and flexible enough to make that happen? And then lastly, you know, just some practical next steps is getting after training, you know, having further follow-up conversations with our account managers and our sales reps, or myself about, you know, continuing to increase data literacy, what that might mean within your context. Let us help you with that, right? We have a consulting services group, we have a training department, we have people that have been here and in this industry for a number of years that are armed and ready to help facilitate this journey into data literacy. So with all of that, I want to say thank you for your time, and if there's any way in which we can help, please let us know. With that, I'll ask Catherine if there are any questions. You want to fire those over to me, and I'll just answer those as we get them.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, James. We did receive a couple questions. The first one is, if we're a Tableau house, will we be able to export our data?
Yeah, so data exports and T2 kind of find their footing in a couple of different ways. So you could, through the task scheduler and the query manager, pull data out of Flex, and that'll get you CSV files. There's some API documentation around connecting directly to the query manager and running those in a more kind of scalable, sustainable way. So there are a couple of ways to get that data to pipe into Tableau if that's what you're using. I know a couple of our customers are doing that.
All right. The next question we got is, will I be able to get these reports in T2 Flex or only through T2 Analytics NXT? For example, citation count issued versus or citation amount due by violation type.
Yeah, that's a great question. We are working on the whole of our reporting and analytics delivery method to our end users, right? So that's to say, evaluating our portal, evaluating how we embed reporting and analytics into the application, and trying to find out what's the best way to deliver that content. So I don't have a solid answer on what that will be by way of presentation, but what I can tell you is that we're in the process of evaluating that to try to find the most efficient way to deliver it.
Great. The next question is T2 Analytics NXT only for hosted customers? Yeah,
so that's a little bit of a shifty question, more in the sense of we could hook up T2 Analytics NXT to a self-hosted environment. It's all around the acquisition of data, okay? So because of the data architecture being what it is, we can create a pipeline into your self-hosted environment and then pump that data all the way through to the known reports that we've curated and created. Now, what a lot of our self-hosted customers have done, because you guys totally can, is make modifications to those tables and, maybe add some views or add some different things. So that's why I say it's a little bit shifty, because we have to investigate that. We have models that are available, will be published on how we've joined tables together, what columns we've used. So we can present that, we can bring that to the beginnings of those types of engagements if you are self-hosted. That way you can say, hey, for this report, we're using these columns, this is what we've done to the data. All right, let's get a pipeline, and then let's get you access.
All right, the next question is T2 Analytics NXT going to have a KPI component? If we are T2 hosted, are we going to be able to see data from other clients for comparison purposes?
Yeah, we talk about KPI, I almost want to put in there benchmarking, right? That's something that we've talked about. And given the architecture as it is, we will be able to benchmark data, like data with other data. Now, that comes with a whole host of caveats around data normalization, anonymizing data, contract clauses, and the like. So I hope nobody gets too ruffled by that. But know that we do have the capabilities to do some of that benchmarking and to present that to our users of T2 Analytics. It is my goal and the goal of this company to be responsible and secure and to hold that to the highest of standards as it pertains to using data within context. Okay? So there's not going to be a situation in which we just open up data to everybody. So if that is a concern, and I know that concern is there, please, please, please talk to us and hear me very clearly that we want to be responsible with any of those presentations as it pertains to benchmarking. So we're still working on a strategy around that. That's not going to be in the initial launch of T2 Analytics NXT. Everything will be you as an organization, hey, this is your data and this is how it fits within this model. And as we get to that point about benchmarking, we're going to be taking some customer interviews and really trying to find a responsible approach to that.
All right, next question is there a connection in T2 Flex for Power BI? Can you connect our Power BI to T2 as a data source?
Currently, let's look at it this way. With the Crystal report, some of you have Crystal reports in its current form, and you have VPN, and you're doing read-only access into it. We're making some changes to that VPN structure for access into T2 Flex to get read-only access of the data out. Okay, so there's some more details around that. For Power BI to T2, again, there are a couple of ways you can get to that, be it the Excel files, right? If you set up queries to export data out, and then you hook up Power BI to that folder, that source, you can pull in data that way. And you can pull in data through, like I said, APIs and figuring out those files. So there are ways to get there without having to use that VPN to get that data.
All right, next question is, what makes Microsoft Power BI better than Thiessens in supporting T2 Analytics?
Yeah, that's a great question. Now, this comes with context. Again, I'll say this off the top. Business intelligence and analytic tools are as useful as your investment and you want to invest in them. So Thiessens as a platform is a great tool within context. It just didn't fit what we were trying to do long term. The model that we wanted to be able to employ was an extract load transfer model as opposed to an extract transfer load model, which is all around the acquisition and storage and presentation of data, okay, for us. And we found that given some of the other things that we wanted to do when it comes to acquiring data, making that a little bit more simple for our clients and customers and presenting that back to them, Microsoft fit the bill there. This is no secret, so I don't have to be secretive about it. You can go download Microsoft Power BI today for free, connect data to it, and start making visualizations, right? I don't say that to undercut anything that we're doing. I'm saying it's like, hey, you could do that. There's tremendous value in leveraging a product like T2 Analytics NXT that's leveraging that technology. There's tremendous value in allowing us to provide and present that data to you when we talk about and think about all of the different ways that you can model T2 data. Us offering our expertise for that and presenting that to you saves a whole host of time. It saves a whole host of time, gives you some good rails to run on in leveraging that technology. And even people that are using Tableau or using other forms, being able to recreate those things and ingest them into Power BI, that application can do that. A lot of people are comfortable with Microsoft Excel using the DAX expression. The DAX is a language for doing things like aggregates and if-then statements and things like that in Excel. That's present in Power BI, and those kinds of jumps are why we chose that platform, right? I love Power BI. I think it's great. It's not to, again, say that Thiessens isn't a way to get insights, or Tableau or JasperSoft aren't ways to get insights. We just felt within the context, Power BI was the right move for us.
All right, and the last question is there a rollout date for T2 Analytics NXT?
Yeah, so we are shooting for IPMI to be able to show T2 Analytics NXT in all of its form and fashion as it pertains to our first offering of it. So we're taking two different models, one be it the standard offering, which will have domains and reports curated by those domains, which find their footing in the Alliance for Parking and Data Standards, like place, rate, rights, privileges, financial, and enforcement. So we're going to do those 6. And we have a brochure and some documentation around that, why we chose those and what that means, how we're getting after that. So we'll be able to show that from a standard offering at IPMI, and then we're going to turn around and beef that up with a premium offering shortly thereafter. And then we'll be able to talk a little bit about how we design inside of Power BI, how do we expose that data, how do we help you from a customer engagement, consulting engagement, training engagements, leveraging your data. Because like I said, you could run your operation off of Excel, right? But how do we really maximize the value of your investment? How do we help you maximize the value of your investment? All of that we'll be ready to talk about here in the next couple of months.
All right. Well, thank you so much, James. And on behalf of the entire T2 team, thank you so much to everyone who attended, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.